Welcome to the show and another edition of As the Notre Dame Defense Turns. Glad to have you with us as we start a brand new week. Fresh off a Notre Dame victory, 56-30. Notre Dame defeated Purdue Saturday. I'm a little thrown off as we start here today, Jesse. I left my headphones at home, and I've got this cheap set on, and it's
just not the same.
It sounds different. It doesn't want to, stay connected. So it's just throwing me off. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's kind of like this gloomy Monday here. Got the rain coming down. Just getting through it. Monday's my least favorite day of the week. This is kind of an audible. I'm sure everyone knows I'm in for Vince today. So
yes.
Don't worry. I did my homework. I watched the game. I listened to the Marcus Freeman press conference like 3 times.
That's a good start. It's a good start.
I'm highly prepared for this show today. And
I'm actually really press conference or today's press conference?
A little bit of both, mainly today's press conference.
Okay. What were you getting ready to say? I'm sorry I cut you off there.
I feel like I think that the number one thing that we have to emphasize or continue to remind ourselves is what you said at the beginning of the show. This is a victory conversation. This is a victory week, and now we have to carry that over into Arkansas.
I mean, that's what's kind of tough about it. When does a win not feel like a win? When your defense.
See, that's the thing is we can be critical, but a win is a win, and that's
true.
We couldn't say those things in the first 2 weeks.
It's all that matters at this point. Losing
hard to win games.
Yep, losing 2 games by a total of 4 points to ranked teams are still 2 losses, and they did beat Purdue. So we will get into the defense here in a little bit. Start us off with a positive thought on Saturday's win, if you would.
This is a team that passed for 250 yards and rushed for 250 yards approximately. I think that's the balance that you want to emphasize. We saw flashes, of CJ Carr opening the game up with a bomb to Malachi Field. I can't remember the last time that we've seen, that deep of a connection on a designed play. I thought the designed play was great. Bring everyone in the box at a play action and finally let CJ Carr hit the middle of the field. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just really cool to see dynamic passing and running. Like the offense is clicking, and like that's kind of probably why it makes the defense a little bit more frustrating. But some positives on the defensive side of the ball. I'll go with Dallas Golden. A kid that played 67 snaps. They introduced him to the nickel position on Monday, and he played 67 snaps. So
crazy.
Incredible. And then, I told you this over the weekend too. I'm going to give compliments to the run defense. I think that, while it's not been amazing, and obviously the coverage has been really bad, I think the run defense we've taken for granted and has done a good job so far.
I mean, it's a fair point. And at this point, it is, especially when you consider the first 2 teams that they played, because the run defense is ranked 45th in the nation right now. Maccabee's not going to be mistaken for a stellar running back, a stellar power 4 running back by any means. It felt to me like Purdue just kind of handed it to him to say, hey, we're trying to run the ball, like we're not just going to throw the ball all over the place, even though they probably could have thrown the ball all over the place if they wanted to. To your point, a win is a win. The offense looked really good, and that is still the upside. Like, I don't think we've seen the ceiling yet for this offense. You start with a play action to Jeremiah Love. It's like what people have been drooling over forever, and you just go deep post, drop it in the bucket, right in there to Malachi Field's first play, post, and 66 yards later, you're in the end zone. So a great start for the offense, and that is the biggest thing. Defense did make some adjustments statistically anyway, and from a point total, they did get better in the second half, and we'll get into that here in just a second. Salty Virginia Peanuts in the YouTube chat says he was at the Purdue game, weather delay, no fun at all.
Really, I thought it was fun for everyone. People at the stadium, people at home. I thought we all loved the weather delay this past Saturday.
Man, rough. Andre Tonsil says wedding week. You're a week ahead, Andre. that is next week. Next week is wedding week. So Jesse's time as a free man winding down as we speak. Did you get up early? Did you work out this morning?
I did do those things. I didn't want to, but of course, Mondays are the hardest. But if you start off and you get it done on Monday, it really, kind of jump starts your week. If you could do it Monday morning, you could do it any morning of the week.
Let's get into the defense a little bit because it is still the question. With a 56-30 victory, as good as your offense looked, the defense, again, predominantly in the first half. And the first half included, because of the rain delay, it included the final minute and 31 seconds and only 53 seconds that it took Purdue to race down the field and move 75 yards for a touchdown. That was included in the first half coming out of the nearly 2-hour weather delay. But then they took a break once that 131 hit zero. Third quarter begins, and the defense did look a little bit different in the third quarter and for the bulk of the second half, forced 4 straight punts. But Marcus Freeman looked very frustrated doing that interview with NBC during the weather break. I mean, the looks on his face as soon as he was asked about the defense, and then in his post-game press conference, he looked and sounded very frustrated, understandably so, with the defense. Again, he was asked about his defense during the post-game press conference, and he had a lot to say. So put on your listening ears because Marcus Freeman's got a lot to say about that defense. Again, this is right after the game Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, just again, as you look at the first half, it's more so the explosive plays. We got to continue to try to decrease. As I watched them during the break, again, I can't remember every single one, but it was actually, here's what I remember, is it was a marriage of the front and coverage. Like, there's times in coverage, if you're playing man or you're playing zone, if the quarterback can step up and scramble and extend plays, somebody's going to be open. And, when we do pressure, when we bring 5, we can't allow the quarterback to sit back there, especially in man coverage, or somebody's going to be coming open. So we have to do a better job of marrying up our coverage and our front and make sure if we're going to play coverage, we're going to play with 7 guys in coverage, then 4 guys are going to have to, get some type of pressure on the quarterback, but also we got to understand, okay, we might have to cover a little bit longer. If we're going to bring 5 guys in pressure, then we shouldn't have to cover that long because we have to get pressure. And so that was the thing that I think as you look at the first half, the second half of the defense, I thought, after the 2-minute drive, which that's the one that really hurt me, hurt us, not me, is just that drive, I don't think there was anything that we could, we tried cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. And what happens is you start to panic and you start to say, okay, this coverage isn't working, let's try this. This isn't working, let's try this. And then you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. You've got to, they're going to make plays. They're going to make some plays. And you got to trust that, hey, this is what our game plan is. This is what we can do and execute. And then you got to trust your players to go out there and get it done. And so, but I thought after that they did a really good job to that last drive. And I felt awful. It's like a decision. Do you go for it on 4th down and just try to kind of extend the game and run out the clock? Or do you punt the ball and give your defense a better chance? And I should have been smart. I should have said, you know what, let's pin them back and make them go the whole length of the field. And, what I'm not upset about, I know I'm kind of rambling, but is kicking Denbrock wanted to go for it on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. I said, no, I want to kick. Schmitty needs that. We had a freshman that hasn't kicked live. We need to kick that. I know he didn't make it, but he's going to be better because of it, right? He's going to be better because he failed in that situation because of that experience. And so I don't regret that one, but I do regret not punting it on the 4th and 4.
Okay, so field goal attempts and punts and, whatever else aside, there was a lot there. I mean, a man literally pounding the table as he went on speaking about the defense. So what does that sound like to you, Jesse?
Yeah, to me, and I'm going to use a big word here, I think the entire equilibrium of the defense is off right now. there's just no cohesive balance, like Marcus Freeman was talking about. When they get pressure, there's a bust in coverage. When they play good coverage, there's not enough pressure, and the quarterback steps up and extends the play, and it ends up making a completion because, like Marcus Freeman said, these guys can't cover forever, and so it seems like, again, there's no cohesiveness or balance amongst the front end, your defensive line, and the back end, a good secondary, because we've talked about it before. Like, a good defensive line can mask a good secondary, and a good secondary can mask a good defensive line, but both of those things are struggling right now. So, like, everything looks like it's not going well, right, for Notre Dame right now. So that's where I think they're stuck. I think the red flag for me in that kind of conversation that Marcus Freeman had was when he brought up panicking and, we're running cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. That's where I think the biggest issue, like, and we'll get into it more. Like, yes, I agree that there's execution errors, but I think what this really boils down to is Notre Dame has a defensive coordinator that doesn't have an identity, because if you're running through all these coverages and you're sitting on the sideline panicking, going through the iPad because it seems like nothing is working, then that's the bigger overarching issue right now.
That's it. That's exactly it. And to me, like, I don't know how much of it necessarily came across in that particular soundbite there. But again, I mean, he spoke for like a minute and a half straight. I think it might have even been longer than that. He just, went on and on about the defense. And then he came to that part that you're talking about where, he starts literally, pounding the podium, talking about we're going through this coverage and this coverage. And then you're panicking. Well, who's panicking?
Yeah,
Marcus Freeman was panicking.
Marcus Freeman's not panicking.
That's exactly right. And he knows. Like, to me, he looks and sounds like a man who knows, especially when you saw the look on his face when he was asked about the defense during the weather delay on NBC, the eye roll and
he couldn't even control himself, and he knew he was on live television in front of everyone.
The look of pure disgust. He knows. He knows that he's got a man. He hired a man who is completely in over his head, is what he has done. That's where he is.
I mean, is it coincidental that after that interview and after he talked about, well, this is what we need to do, things got better?
Right.
You know, like, is that purely coincidental? Yeah. That when Marcus Freeman was like, hey, we should maybe try some of these, stunts and some of this stuff, that, like, they finally got a couple sacks. They finally, forced a turnover, I'm pretty sure. Like, a lot of good things started to happen. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, at halftime, when Marcus Freeman's stuck in there for 2 hours and he's ripping everyone apart because he's going back and looking at things, like, I don't think that's a coincidence.
I don't either. I mean, Marcus Freeman is, that drive that he talked about where Purdue goes 75 yards, he's doubled over on the sideline. And then in between that quarter break that we talked about, there's, there's a meeting between Marcus Freeman, Mike Mickens, and Chris Ash. And now, the one part of this equation, we don't really know how much difference did getting a Don Schuler back in the second half make. Right. He was back there. Obviously, they did much better. I know Brian has talked about the fact that Purdue dropped an easy pass, and the next thing you know, it's 49-23. Well, it was still 42-23 before that. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of what Notre Dame was doing, with the front and getting pressure and those kind of things. It just felt like, watching that, though, those next few possessions after that last Purdue touchdown, because I'm not going to count the one at the very end of the game because both teams have, deep reserves in the bench, off the bench in the game. But for the balance of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, it looked and felt much different. It looked and felt much more like what we became accustomed to seeing from a Notre Dame defense the past couple of years. Same personnel for the most part. Only real difference was a Don Schuler. It just it looked a lot different to me, and it just feels like Marcus Freeman knows. And if this team is going to come close, anywhere close, ballpark, to achieving the goals that it set out for itself at the beginning of the season, he is going to have to have a much more. He's going to have to be much more involved in the day-to-day game operation of the defense. He was asked about that today, as a matter of fact. his involvement in the defense. He was asked if he would ever consider taking over defensive pre-snap play calling. Now strap in, because he's going to go for a while on this one as well. So here you go.
If I thought it was a call, if I thought we weren't calling the game the right way, trust me, I know the definition of insanity, and if that was the case, you got to do what's best for your program. But that's not, to me, the issue when I'm evaluating our defensive play. It's not what we're calling at this time or why we're calling it. It's, okay, why aren't we executing, right? It's not me saying I'm going to call the defense it's a call. If I'm going to call the defense, then it's based on a call. We're not calling the right calls. I don't believe that's true. Or I would say, hey,
I'll finish it here just a
Chris
second.
Ash, call this. It's
okay. So he said if it's just a call, that all, what difference does it make? It's a call. What do you think about him saying that?
Thought that was interesting. Basically what he's saying is, and everyone kind of heard it, he doesn't believe that Chris Ash is not calling the right things. But at the same time, I feel like you can't have that same rant that you had at halftime and post game and then say that your defensive coordinator is calling things exactly how you would call it.
Right. All right. We'll continue, because again, this goes for a while here. We'll hear more from Marcus Freeman now.
okay, we called this for this reason, and it didn't work. They executed an explosive play. Okay, what's the reason behind it, right? And that's what we spent a lot of time evaluating and discussing. And so how do you get them to execute it at a better level or play with the right fundamentals? I think it still starts with a buy-in, of it's me, everybody. I think right now we got to make sure in our football facility that we're not pointing a finger at a call. We're not pointing a finger at if he would have called something else or if he would have did. We're pointing a finger at ourselves as what am I not doing to execute this call the right way? If I'm confused, then you better speak up and say something, right? Because you're going to be held accountable, right? But if we do this and we do this, we'll get it fixed. And that's the challenge during tough times, right? I get excited when I talk during tough times, there's two options. You fight or flight. And the guys that flight blame other people. It's the call. It's his fault. It's this coach's fault, or it's that player's fault. We gave up a big play. That corner should have covered him. That's the flight mode. You deflect and blame other people. But the fight mode is, gosh, man, call man again. Call man again. I promise you my man's not going to catch the ball. I'm going to play with the right technique, and I'm going to refuse to let my man catch the ball.
Okay, so I don't disagree with the mentality that he's talking about there. But again, go back to the clip that we just played a minute ago where he's talking about, and of course he didn't come out and say the defensive coordinator is going cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. Well, that's all about the calls. The guy
There's only one person who could be doing that.
The guy doesn't trust the call that he just made, so he's calling something else. The next play he's calling something else. The next play he's calling something else. So which is it? Is it the calls or is it the execution? I'm completely confused here at this point.
I've cracked this riddle, and this is why I had to listen to his press conference for 3 times today, because I really wanted to understand where he was coming from. So do you want to hear my take on
Yes,
this?
I do. I absolutely want to hear your take on this.
So here's how I think I can make this the most simple, or the simplest. Marcus Freeman knows.
Actually, you know what? Let's hold that thought, because I just realized we're already, in terms of getting our breaks in and all that kind of stuff. If we do this first, we might be a little bit hard. So hold that thought, and I want you, when we come back, I want you to answer it. Okay.
All right. Give me
All right.
more time to collect my thoughts.
Yes.
That's appreciated.
Exactly. Talking Notre Dame's defense after the 56-30 win over Purdue Saturday at Notre Dame Stadium with Jesse Stiers, Sean Stiers, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. On a Monday after Notre Dame's 56-30 win over Purdue, probably wouldn't know it based on, I think, how most fans feel about the performance of the defense. Jesse, before our last time out, you were about to give us your thoughts on the mysteries of the Notre Dame defense. Go ahead. I can't. Those are all
my
your
notes from today.
All right.
I came prepared. It's like a play call sheet.
So what's the issue Marcus Freeman was talking about? Do I need to back it up a little bit and play it again?
No, I don't think you do. I think Marcus Freeman knows what the problem is, but he's not going to create a culture of blame and finger pointing is what it comes down to at the end of the day. Yeah. He wants everyone to take accountability and work on their, 1/11th to enhance the situation or make it better. So, to put that in maybe even more simpler terms, he knows that Chris Ash is struggling, and he knows that Chris Ash is predominantly the majority of their problems, but there's still technique errors. There's still, play calling errors that are, on the side of Chris Ash. And, I think another thing that hasn't really been brought to light yet is, and especially this last game, Notre Dame had a lot of young players playing out there, right? And you're also replacing, players like Riley Mills, Howard Cross, RJ Oben, Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watts. Like, there's still a little bit of that turnover, but I think the frustrating part is, if you're kind of inexperienced, why are you asking your players to run a coverage and also disguise a coverage at the same time? Like, are you putting too much on their plate as a head coach?
The fact that you have so many guys on the field who are doing what I'm doing right now, they're standing there with the universal sign for I don't know what's going on. Their palm, their arms up and their palms in the air. It's like, what I don't know. Like, there's too much of that. And Andre is asking in the YouTube chat, do you think what would things look like if Al Golden was here? You think we would still have these coverage breakdowns? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say no, Andre. Like, how many times over 3 years did you see coverage breakdowns like Notre Dame has had in 3 consecutive games? You might be able to count, were there ever coverage breakdowns? Sure, but there weren't complete collapses. You didn't see teams like Purdue. Remember, this is Purdue. This is a bottom feeder in the Big Ten, needing 53 seconds to go 75 yards at the end of the first half. Al Golden's defense would chew a team up like that last year and for the last 3 years. Like, I don't think we see near the confusion that we're seeing right now. And it's obviously because you had Al Golden's mentality and the way he would call a game, and now you have Chris Ash's mentality and the way he calls games. And there are checks within the coverages that obviously the players are not all in sync with. And I think that is a huge part of why we're seeing so many coverage breakdowns. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of continue the path that I was going down.
Sorry,
I think we're thinking about it a little too hard. I mean, do I think that Al Golden would have had this many issues? Obviously not. Do I think maybe some of the same issues would have presented itself? I do, because the personnel is largely the same. I think there would obviously be not as much confusion. There would be more clarity. But again, I think what Marcus Freeman is trying to establish here is, what happens in the big time games. Like, let's go back to last season versus Penn State. They obviously aren't having the first half that they want. Do you think if they go into the locker room and they start pointing fingers and saying, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing that and you're not doing this, do you think they would have came out and prevailed against Penn State and ultimately won that game? Mm-hmm. No. And I think that's the biggest thing that he's trying to hit home right now is, like, we're going to run into different problems down the road. Like, the offense is going to sputter at some point. CJ Carr is going to do something, to hurt the team. Jeremiah Love is going to do something to hurt the team. But you can't start pointing fingers now, because what that allows is a culture for laziness and for players to deflect when it is actually their fault and they do need to take accountability. Because, again, the cop-out would be, well, you did this and I did that, or you did this. And so you can't establish that culture, even though it's probably very glaring and blaring what the issue is right now. But at some point, the issues are going to redirect themselves. And so you can't, again, if you want to remain a team and you want to fix on everything, fixing everything as a team, then you can't start singling out and pointing and saying, okay, well, you did this and you did that. So I respect Marcus Freeman for that. And I think that's a really tough part of being a head coach. No matter how bad you want to say Chris Ash is not doing a good job, you can't get in front of the microphone and directly say Chris Ash is doing a bad job.
Exactly. That's what you can't do. But at the same time, you could say, challenge everything has been Marcus Freeman's thing. Have we heard him say we're going to challenge everything? I know he talked about, we had this meeting, the defensive coaches, and it was a hard meeting. And so it sounds like maybe they, he called some things out. They had this meeting on Sunday. They called some things out. Okay. How far is that going to go, though? What is it actually going to solve? We know that he can't publicly blame him, but we also haven't heard him say something simple that we've heard him say for the last 3 years. We're going to challenge everything. Are you literally going to challenge everything, including, that question, that soundbite that we just played for Marcus Freeman started with the question of, would you take over defensive play calling? Brent Venables calls his defense as head coach at Oklahoma. In the question that was asked to him by Tim Priester today, Mike Elko calls his defense at Texas A&M. There are plenty of head coaches with whatever specialty they have, whether it's offense or defense, who, they still have a coordinator who runs the day-to-day, but on game day, they're the ones calling the shots out there. But he said that it's not about just who's calling the shots. It's about all of these other things as well. So one of these other things that has been a recurring issue that Marcus Freeman covered in that first, well, not covered, but he touched on in that first soundbite that we played, is the marriage of the front and the back end, the secondary. He has brought that up multiple times, that is an issue, that they're not able to get those two things to marry together. And I asked him today why that has been so complicated to get those two things to marry up.
When I say the front and the coverage have to work together, I'm using philosophy of, if we're going to play coverage, right, then our front has to beat some one-on-one blocks, right, and we got to at some point affect the quarterback. Right, we're rushing forward, but usually they're protecting with 5 or 6. So somebody's getting a one-on. We got to be married up in our rush lanes and somehow affect the quarterback, because we got 7 guys in coverage. If we are going to bring pressure, we have to know that there's a certain amount of time that quarterback can have, because we're expecting our DBs and our back 7 or back 6, how many you bring, to cover for this amount of time. Because when you're playing man or zone pressure defense, it's just you can't have a lot of time. You're down in a defender. So we have to do a better job in that area, right? When we're rushing forward, we cannot let the quarterback extend plays. We can't. We have to make sure we marry up that rush so that we're keeping him in the pocket but also affecting him, right? We have to get pressure. And when we bring pressure, man, we have to get home and we have to affect the quarterback, because the DBs can't cover for that long.
Okay, I mean, I get all those things. That is the literal answer to the question. When you break it down, what he's talking about, I get all those things. But again, I've been here for 25 years and I've never heard a head coach stand up and say, we can't get the, the front end matched up with the back end. And Marcus Freeman has said multiple times every week so far. So what do you think, Jess?
It's really hard to like you said, it's like when he presents the information, it's like, okay, yeah, that all makes sense. But the question is, at the end of the day, still why, why aren't these things happening?
Right.
Because we all understand that in order to get, pressure, you got to commit more to pressure, which means you have less people committed to coverage. And then vice versa. If you commit more people to coverage, then obviously you have less people trying to get home. To me, ultimately, my answer, and maybe this is a lazy, quick, off the rip answer. I just think that their blitzing is not very creative this year. Like when they bring pressure, it is so bland. It's just Drake Bowen running straight at the center, and they call that a pressure. Like it felt like, again, in the second half, there was more creativity behind the pressures. And, oh, look, that means we're actually getting, some sort of, sack or hit on the quarterback or pressure.
And that's why I go back to, it can't be just the calls, because they were different kinds of calls in the second half, right? And some of those were getting home when they had more sacks and pressures and tackles for loss.
To me, it felt like Marcus Freeman, this is the envision I had in my head, because it just took me back to my defensive coordinator going absolutely nuts when we'd be inside the locker room sometimes. I just imagine him ripping over this big whiteboard, because they usually have whiteboards that are on wheels, like that you see in classrooms. And he just starts slamming on the board, and he goes, guys, it's not that hard. And he starts, scribbling up defensive lineman. He said, this is how we're going to do it. Stunt, 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 stunt. And they sat down, they had a little session, and then they went out on the field, and voila, things started to work. But I just imagine him in the locker room just being like, guys, it's not that hard. And he's up there just scribbling all over the board. You come here, you come down this way. And next thing you know, they're getting pressure. So I think Notre Dame needs to go back to, and again, we sometimes criticize Golden for blitzing too much, but obviously there was a method behind his madness because of, probably some of these issues that they're running into right now of, things that he kind of already troubleshooted. So why would you not take advantage of some of these design pressures that really worked, maybe despite some of the lack of size that you have as, from Heinisch, or maybe some of the lack of overall athleticism that you have from Junior Tuialamaka on the edge sometimes. Like, what are you doing knowing your personnel to scheme them up to get them into advantageous situations?
And that is it. Does Chris Ash / whoever else is involved in this at this point, like we know Chris Ash is to whatever extent, it doesn't feel like he understands the personnel. Because like Gavin Wright is saying, we have no significant pass rush. That's not calls, that's players. They just need to do better. To an extent, I agree with that. But as Chris Ash and Marcus Freeman, you have to realize by now you're not getting home with four guys. Your four-man rushes are not working. One, you start off at least a one-man, -1 disadvantage when you're only rushing four. These guys have shown through 3 games, and even against Purdue, it's one thing against Miami and Texas A&M, but even against Purdue, you're not getting home with just a 4-man pass rush. It is not going to work. You have to do something different. And to your point, these blitzes that Chris Ash calls, when he calls them, are completely insignificant. They are as vanilla can be. And you've got to do something different. Literally, Jesse, because you remember when you were in high school, I used to have, fun with one of your coaches who loved to blitz the linebacker right up the middle. Like, it is the most basic blitz that you can run, is just blitzing a mic right up the middle into nothing and not getting any pressure with it. The thing with Golden, obviously, is he disguised coverages well, and he brought blitzes. He brought those pressures, where quarterbacks and offensive coordinators just could not easily recognize them. And that's why they were so effective. You can't just run a blitz.
It was like the art of the surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaking tendency. And I think, to be quite honest with you, that I think that's what's causing, at least half the panic in the secondary. It's like, coach, we can't guard forever. We're trying to in man, we're trying to in zone, we're trying to we can't guard forever. And now we're second guessing everything we're doing, because no matter what we do, the quarterback can just sit back there all day. So, I'm not fully blaming the defensive line, just like I'm not fully blaming the secondary, just like I'm not fully blaming Chris Ash. Like, a lot of the majority of it's on Chris Ash's shoulders. Like, we can confidently say that, right? But again, that goes back to kind of what Marcus Freeman was talking about, is it's not going to be any of this finger pointing, everyone needs to come together and work on figuring this thing out.
Yeah. Freeman said in one of those cuts, the definition of insanity and doing the same thing over and over again. Well, right now, that's what they've done with, again, like that third quarter looked unlike anything that we've seen so far. Some things they were doing up front, the way they were bringing pressures and dialing some of those things up. Guys were getting after it. They looked a couple steps faster than what we've seen any other time so far this year. So does that become a little bit more of the norm now? I think that's the question. Along with, is Marcus Freeman actually more involved in this whole thing than he's letting on? I have to think that he is.
Based off of what I saw in the second half and how upset he was, visibly upset he was. And then talking, I mean, he even said in his press conference, where does it all come back to at the end of the day? Me, Marcus Freeman, the head coach.
Right.
He knows what's at stake, and he knows that his face is on it. So while he's not blatantly going to say it, I think it's going to be more and more obvious that he's got his hands, back in the and maybe it's just, starting off by sitting in on meetings, providing input, providing a different perspective. But the more that this thing, goes south as the season progresses, when you really need to start fixing things and playing your best football, then there's good, like that timer is just ticking very quickly in the opposite direction.
Because again, it's one thing to say, well, the playbook is the same. It's still the Notre Dame defense, but it's also the mentality. Like every coach is going to have a different mentality. We can see on the field how different Chris Ash's mentality is compared to Al Golden's mentality. And honestly, like there's nothing that Al Golden could have done to control this, but with Joe Burrow out, what's even going to happen to that coaching staff by the time this season is over with there in Cincinnati with everything that's going on right now?
You're saying if it all blows up, just everyone come back?
Well, what I'm saying is, it's for Al Golden personally, it's great. He's an NFL defensive coordinator, but it could all end at the end of the season, and then who knows what happened. I mean, if I were Marcus Freeman, would I be on the phone to Al Golden pretty quickly? Of course I would, but he's being wasted in Cincinnati with Jake Browning as the quarterback there right now. Take our final break of this hour. We'll come back. We will talk a little bit of offense, the bright spot from Saturday's win over Purdue. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's a weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers, rolling through the first hour of the show. Talk a little Notre Dame offense here. We haven't had a chance to talk any offense so far, Jess, because we've just been beating up that defense.
People better not piss me off. This is an offense that scored 56 points, 250 on the ground, 250 in the air. I'm not here for negative comments this week, especially after all the defensive stuff that we've discussed.
280 through the air with Kenny Minchie's numbers combined in there. 281, 254 on the ground against Purdue. Marcus Freeman asked today about the way the offense operated with the deep shots in the passing game mixed with that potent 1-2 punch of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price.
Yeah, that's a great description of what we went into the season, said this is what we want our offense to be, is have the ability to run the ball, which opens up those big play shots, right? That opens up those explosive plays because they're saying, okay, hey, we got to stop the run. We got to bring an extra guy in the box. But we also know that if we got to pass the ball to have success, then we got to do it. Right, and I have the confidence we will, but I believe we are a balanced offense, man. We are truly a balanced offense that prides ourselves on running the ball, and now you're seeing some really explosive plays through the air.
Does it feel like, Jesse, this offense has come close to its full potential yet?
Close is a relative term. I think that they're probably like 70% of the way there, to be honest with you. I don't think that they've fully unlocked the run game, and I definitely certainly don't believe they fully unlocked the passing game. I like what I see out of the balanced attack. Like they just gave them a heavy dose of Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love just ate them up, and they said, "Oh, here's a fresh Jadarian Price for you to deal with as well." Right after that, and then that's not to mention we just threw a 66-yard bomb to our stud wide receiver over the middle of the field. So, I think that they've obviously got a good grip on their running game in general. I think the couple areas that would take them to the next level or really kind of put them in the unstoppable category is short down runs. I want them to just exert their will every 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. I think the short to intermediate passes are there. I want to see more of the layered downfield throws, but there's no reason to force those, situationally dependent. I think that that area could improve as well. And then I think the last thing that I'd want to see is just getting multiple off your looks, being able to, this is what we've shown, kind of boom, boom, boom. But now on the 10th play, we're hitting you with a wrinkle and we're scheming something else up. And those things will come as the season go on. But I think the offense is like 75% there, but I don't think that they're lacking in any way. I don't think they're behind. I think that them getting there is just naturally going through a season progression, especially with someone like CJ Carr, who's obviously a first-time starting quarterback.
Look, and that 66-yard touchdown pass is on film now. So, when you think about that, and then you think about the 48-yarder to Jordan Faison as well, the fact that, that is there now. People know that that's a possibility. And when you look at the kind of teams they're going to play the rest of the way, they can't just sit on Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in the running game now, because it is a possibility that CJ Carr is going to throw it over the top of your head. When did we see Riley? It wasn't very often. Riley Leonard might have tried a couple of deep shots like that last year, but we didn't see him complete deep shots like that, especially consistently. But so I think that that's going to go a long way in helping this offense continue to evolve. But something else that we haven't seen yet, we talk about Jaden Greathouse, for example, not being involved in this offense yet and getting the slot involved. We haven't seen that slot fade. And, that's a thing that Mike Denbrock was, he's known for. He does a lot of that slot fade. We haven't seen really that as part of the offense yet either, it feels like there are a lot of different levels still for this offense to go to going forward. And I think everyone's got to be excited about that.
I'm going to say this. I've I think Miami's legit, and I think their defense is legit.
Yeah.
I mean,
They still
Lagway couldn't
gotta
do
get Miami.
anything.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at, I don't have
Or I
any
get
doubt
Florida, rather.
that this offense can't keep up in any of the remaining regular season games. Like the offense, I don't think anyone can stop this offense until proven otherwise. Like, and I'm not trying to, put the cart ahead of the horse by any means, but and will the offense probably struggle here and there? Of course, they're like that's just the nature of football. You're not perfect all the time, but this offense is ahead of schedule. It's dominant, and I really don't know who on their schedule is going to slow them down. The only thing that's going to slow them down this year is their defense.
That's exactly right. Jimmy in the YouTube chat says Arkansas is not that good. They got beat by Memphis. Did you see the yardage that Arkansas put up, though?
That's what I mean. Marcus Freeman talked about, they got big bodies and all that stuff, but It's like, I mean, Memphis took Arkansas to the shed.
Arkansas still threw for 325 yards and had 500 yards of total offense. They've got a dual threat quarterback who, he's their leading rusher, Taylon Green. Arkansas's biggest problem against Memphis was they turned the ball over 3 times. Green threw a couple of interceptions, and they had a fumble as well. And that's still, in addition to all the yardage that Notre Dame's defense is giving up, can they force enough turnovers against a team like this? I mean, that's ultimately in a 1-point game. It's the 3 turnovers that cost Arkansas. They still move the ball, and they are going to move the ball on Notre Dame if Notre Dame's defense looks anything like what we've seen through the first 3 games. And let's be honest, do you really expect them to go from a team that's given up over 30 points a game to 15 from one game to the next, especially against a team like they're going to see this week? That with a dual threat quarterback that's shown they can move the ball. I don't think that they will. I think Notre Dame's probably going to have to score at least 45 points again to win this weekend.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because what's going to happen is CJ Carr is going to have one of those freshman-looking games at some point, and I fear that the defense won't be there to bail him out, it's just not fair at the end of the day. Like, the offense continues to bail out the defense, even though they have 2 losses. Like, that's crazy to say. Like, the offense is bailing out a defense when they have 2 losses, but we're going to see a game like Clemson 2 years ago. Remember at Clemson, noon kickoff, like the offense couldn't do a single thing.
Where you just lay an egg. Yeah.
We're going to see that at some point. And I'm really afraid for that day because what is the defense? What backbone is the defense going to have to say, you know what?
Right.
Today's our day to show up and win us a football game.
Right. Exactly. Does it happen this weekend when you go on the road an 11 a.m. local time kickoff in Arkansas? They're on Central Time, so it's going to be noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. local time, early road game. First time they've had to do, very similar, I think, if I remember right. I was in France when that Notre Dame Clemson game was that you're talking about. I think that was an early kickoff as well. So,
I mean, it's SEC country. The fans will be there. There's still going to be a lot of excitement. Their name's coming to town. Arkansas is going to be pissed off. They just got embarrassed by Memphis, blew a game that they should have won late. It's not a game that you can just show up and say, oh, everything's going to go, how it's supposed to.
Exactly. We will break for the top of the hour. Hour number 2, it is rapid fire. We've got a lot of Notre Dame conversation, more Notre Dame conversation for you. I see some questions queued up in the YouTube chat that we will get to, that and more. All coming up, hour number 2, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Hour 2, Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, and that means rapid fire time. How you doing there, Jesse?
Second hour. I'm ready for it.
Ready.
I'm hoping, like I said, this is where let's enjoy the fact that they just won a game. Let's have some fun with some rapid fire.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Dallas Golden made his first career start against Purdue due to Devontae Smith being injured again. Here is Marcus Freeman on the skills of Dallas Golden.
I think his ceiling is extremely high. He is extremely athletic, talented. He's got a lot of playmaking ability. As you watch him in high school, he's probably as good on the offensive side as he was in the defensive side. He is an athletic player, and he wants to be great. He wants to be coached. We moved him to nickel last Monday, and for him to put himself in a position to play 60, I don't know how many plays he plays, 60, 70 plays. And it's a testament to the work he's put into it, but also his ability. Like any freshman in your first game, there were some ups, there were some downs, but I'm very confident in where he's headed.
Fill in the blank, Jesse. It is blank. They moved Dallas Golden to nickel just a week ago today before his first career start at that position.
Yeah, to me, all I can say is it's freaky because it shows his freakish athleticism, and that's what Marcus Freeman was getting at in this clip that you played. Is Dallas Golden is just such a freak athlete and has so much freaky talent that they're like, well, we can't not put him on the field, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a need for him to play nickel, it's going to be Dallas Golden. If there's a need for him to play wide receiver for whatever position, I'm sure he'll get consideration. If there's a need for him to go back there and play safety at some point or maybe play corner, he's going to get consideration. And so I love this about Marcus Freeman and this coaching staff is we just never would have seen this in previous regimes where we understand that this guy is just again, freakishly talented, that they're finding a way to get him on the field. They're almost looking for an excuse not to put him on the field, but he continues to show why he deserves to be on the field.
No, absolutely. It's amazing that just the athletic ability that this guy has. But I mean, that's obviously part of why they recruited him and brought him here. The fact that they just put him at nickel on Monday and he starts there. That was his first career action. He hadn't played up until that point. That was it. He gets out there and he stuffed the stat sheet as well. He got his first career interception, obviously, in the second half. He had a pass breakup. He had 5 tackles. He had half a tackle for loss, and that's his first game after just learning the position on Monday. And so, it gives me a lot of hope that this secondary does still have, because you mentioned it in the first hour, Jesse. As much as we bashed the secondary and what this defense is doing for what it's giving up, you didn't have Leonard Moore out there. You didn't have Devontae Smith out there. So you had guys
inexperienced.
Yeah, you still had Carson Hobbs, or I guess you had Mark Zachary out there, so you've got a couple of freshmen out there starting at nickel and corner for you, and you move Christian Gray to a different position as well. You didn't have a Don Schuler for the entire first half. So there was at least some growing pains, but you still don't expect it to look like that. But, as for Dallas Golden, it's just you get him and Devontae Smith back, and you have the ability to use both of those guys. And then I think it gives you the ability to do some different things with Dallas Golden as well, just with his versatility that he's got.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be, I guess, rude or mean here, but remember last week when we were going through the whiteboard and kind of going through some of the defensive struggles, we talked about how Carson Hobbs probably shouldn't see the field as much. And if my memory serves itself, I think he played 0 snaps, defensive snaps this past weekend. So, Marcus Freeman talked about this in a little bit of his different, press conferences, in a different part of the press conferences. You still have a lot of guys playing new positions. You still have a good young core of players. And there's going to be growing pains, but there's no better way to learn than through exposure, right? They have to build that football knowledge. And so to me, I think what we're getting into is the core rotation of secondary players that need to be out there. Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, Tay Johnson, Dallas Golden, Adon Schuler. Like, I'm cool with that group of 5 right there, depending on how you mix and match and use guys at corner, and et cetera. But like Mark Zach, that's a true freshman, right? Like, we're giving these guys, like, the experienced players are having trouble in this secondary. And we know that they're not calling plays right and the technique isn't right. So can we give them some benefit of the doubt here that there are a little bit of growing pains? And I know everyone's going to say, well, under Al Golden, Leonard Moore was a success instantly. But that can't be the expectation. We can't just expect true freshmen to come in here and just light it up every time, they're called upon. So there are going to be some growing pains. And I'm willing to concede that a little bit as part of this defense, is that some of these younger guys are going to have to go through some of those growing pains. And let's not to mention some of these games they're going through. Texas A&M, really good offense. Miami, really good offense. Like, now we get to settle in and watch them play some of these not as good opponents that, some of these other schools got the benefit of playing in games 1 and 2 to allow someone like, Tay Johnson, Dallas Golden to get their feet wet and not have to hit the ground running right away.
You also haven't even mentioned Madden Faramo. I know we're talking mostly about the secondary right now, but I remember when Faramo got on the field, I was like doing a double take and a triple take, and it's like 19, and Driscoll is sitting next to me, and I'm like, Faramo's out there right now. And then the next play, he gets that deflection that Christian Gray turns into an interception. Didn't see a lot of him the rest of the first half, but he got a lot of reps the second half, and I don't feel like, well, I know that we haven't talked about the fact that Faramo, Kingston, Viliamu, Asa linebacker combination was pretty effective when those two guys were out there together.
I didn't know when this would come up, but I'm very much a fan of those guys being on the field.
I was too, based on what I saw.
And I don't want to, maybe this can lead into some stuff later this week, but if that Arkansas quarterback is as dynamic as, believed, then those are the guys that you want on the field. Faramo and KVA have the athleticism to not only play coverage, but also rally to the ball without playing QB spy and making tackles in open space.
Correct. There's a lot of promise there, a lot of hope there, I think, still. Where did it go? So Irish Eyes asks if Hobbs is hurt. He is not hurt. Hobbs is not hurt. He just has not been effective when he's been out there on the field. And that's why it was so important for Dallas Golden to be able to do what he did. And, big hats off to him. Bubs asks, any word on the injured players, Moore, Smith, and the kicker? Noah Burnett being the kicker, of course, Leonard Moore being Moore, and Smith being Devontae Smith. They are all listed as questionable once again on the injury report this week. Marcus Freeman sounded, maybe pretty hopeful that Leonard Moore would be back by this week, but I think, it's just going to be a wait and see kind of thing. It's, stinks that they're all so banged up this early on. Couple super chats in the YouTube chat. Thanks to Jimmy. He says, feel better, Vince. Prayers for a smooth recovery. Vince, did have some time in the hospital at the end of last week. Monday is typically his day. He's not here today. Thanks to Jesse for filling in. And obviously we hope that our man Vince D'Addario is feeling better very soon. But I'll let him, once he does come back, we're hopeful that he'll be back, but potentially midweek on the show. We shall see, but I'll let him kind of.
How can he not be feeling better after watching the Chicago Bears demolish our Dallas Cowboys yesterday?
Thanks for the super sticker there, Jimmy Costanzo, throwing a little in. Hunter Hall, by the way, in the YouTube chat says, hey, thank you, Cowboy fans, for Micah. Go Pack, go. Yeah, how'd that game in Cleveland turn out yesterday?
He jumped off sides in a critical situation. I texted you that. I think the Browns were content with sending it to overtime. And then when Micah Parsons got that offsides penalty, it kind of gave them, we could, we got 1st and 5 here. We pick up a first down and we can get into field goal range. It's always the little things that add up.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a great player, but didn't work out in game number 1 quite there, did it, Hunter? Okay, Marcus Freeman asked about the left side of the offensive line today, including left tackle Anthony Knapp.
I'm as confident in the entire offensive line as I've ever been. I know we gave up the sack, and Knapp will take ownership of it. CJ is going to take ownership of it. They brought a boundary pressure. We got to know what type of speed's coming off that edge with the safety. CJ's got to understand and recognize, okay, it is a pressure. Maybe I got to drift away or get the ball out. But I'm as confident in all 5 of those guys as I've ever been.
Okay, Marcus Freeman, very confident in that offensive line. Does Carr, Jesse, need to take any responsibility for a blindside sack?
So, first impressions, I would have told you no, but the more I thought about it, the more I would say yes. I think this kind of breaks down to like
we just saying he's got to recognize there's a corner there. And
yeah, I mean, he's got to like part of being a quarterback. And I don't see, this is the thing is I don't know the liberties that CJ Carr is given, but I know, listening to Tom Brady talk and hearing him be kind of an analyst during these games, quarterbacks are up there. They have to recognize what's at the line of scrimmage, what pressures are coming. They're going to, make call outs to set the blocking for the offensive line. Like at the end of the day, yes, there's things that CJ Carr could have done. He could have recognized it. He could have stepped up. Like Marcus Freeman said, he could have moved the pocket to the right a little bit.
Yeah, but it seems
but
like
Anthony Knapp whiffing
moved his feet a little bit. Come on. Sorry.
I mean, I just don't think it's 100% on Knapp. Like it's still majority on Knapp, but I understand what he's saying.
Anthony Knapp touched the man once. He didn't. Anthony Knapp has a much bigger body than a cornerback coming off the edge. I realized but he was in front of him. All he has to do is keep moving his feet, and he wouldn't have been able to get to him. I understand what you're saying about Carr, just the recognition. But again, we are talking about a guy who's making his 3rd career start and accounting for those kind of things in real time. To me, I put it much more on the left tackle needing to move a little. Knapp had a nice day run blocking. The pass blocking was a completely different situation, and that obviously took it to another level. I understand what you're saying and what Marcus Freeman is saying is about recognition, but I still put it much more on Anthony Knapp. Just keep moving. He just stopped moving. That to me was the biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you watch the play, it's definitely majority on Anthony Knapp. It's just I don't love this hyperfixation on everything that Knapp does, because it seems like we want to single out every time he's bad and say, well, he's not a left tackle. When is Rudolph going to make the change? He's an idiot. Why is he still playing left tackle? Like, I'm not here for piling on the guy or just, again, putting a spotlight on him every time he has a bad rep. Like, there's 60 to 70 offensive plays a game. Of course, he's going to make mistakes, but obviously you don't want to see a mistake where the quarterback is getting stripped from the blind side. Like, that's obviously a mistake that has to be corrected. But again, like, if we're going to go back to the whole moral, I feel like, of this show is Marcus Freeman's not going to allow the finger pointing and say, Anthony Knapp, you are the sole reason why this whole play broke down. And that's what it's got to be, is there still has to be and CJ Carr will probably say the same thing. Like, there's things that he could have recognized to make the play go better. And that's all I'm saying. It's still obviously on Knapp the most at the end of the day, but there's still some responsibility for Carr to recognize. And he will.
I got you. Brian asks if Knapp or Absher would make the best right guard for now, and would Gerby Lambert make the best left tackle. I do have to say, and obviously I was not wishing like an extended injury on Knapp, but when he had to leave the game for a play and Gerby Lambert moved over there to left tackle, I was curious to see what things might look like with Gerby Lambert playing left tackle instead of right guard. But we only got to see that for one play. So, I mean, I can't give you the answer to that question because we haven't got to see it at this point. I think most people feel like Knapp would be better on the interior, but that's not the direction that they're going. And it doesn't sound like anytime soon they're going to go in that direction. Jesse has made his point and he doesn't want to go any farther.
I don't like getting on the offensive line when they had those sort of numbers.
I hear you. Let's take a break. Come back. We got more rapid fire, more Notre Dame topics, and some other college football and NFL stuff as well. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid Fire and Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. So Marcus Freeman was asked today about the possibility of putting Leonard Moore on the other team's best receiver when he's ready to go. And here is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's as good as I've been around at that position. And, we've had discussions if we need to match him up with the best wide receiver, and no matter where he's at, we will. But you also got to do a good job being able to do that and play some zone. We can't just tell the offense, hey, we're playing man, right? We're playing man, because no defense is good enough to just say, hey, we're playing man, and every play stop them, right? And so we have considered that. We've talked about it. We need to get him available and ready to go before we can do that. And that might be this week. We're still questionable right now, but we'll see if that's what we decide to do.
So in other words, they're obviously still going to play zone. They're not just going to play man. Scale of 1 to 10, though, how much do you like the idea of Moore staying with the other team's best receiver, though, when they are in man?
Right now I would say a 3 out of 10, but if they can get the defense kind of back to a well-oiled functioning machine, then it would be a 10 out of 10, because I do think that, in high leverage games, high leverage situations, you see it in the NFL, the guys who get paid the most money and are the premier cornerbacks, they're going to travel and they're going to play predominantly on the other team's best wide receiver. But I just don't think situationally right now that makes sense. Notre Dame has a lot of other things to figure out before they can say, yeah, we're confident enough to let Leonard Moore travel around and play man anywhere. And like Marcus Freeman said, is like you still have to disguise it, because if he's just running around with the same guy every time, then it's very obvious what you're doing defensively. But I think that Marcus Freeman knows this. You can still play man on one side and zone on the other. Like you don't have to play fully one coverage. So again, that comes with getting creative. That comes with guys understanding the defense more, and some of these young, inexperienced cornerbacks getting more time, getting more reps, and getting, just more overall comfort. Like you can't do that skilled stuff as a defense until you got the basics down. And so it's a good concept, but I don't think it's something that we would see until the back half of the season.
Yeah, I like it at a 6, I think, for and I don't need to break it down any more than you did. 1, you've got to get him healthy. 2, you don't just want to show what coverage you're in, and there needs to be ways to disguise it and stuff like that. But you get into some crucial parts of the game, I guess. I think like if you're in the fourth quarter and if it's a 1-score game and that kind of thing, and you need somebody to lock the other guy down, like I would absolutely be all in on something like that. But do you need to do it? Should you do it over the course of an entire game? Probably not. Fill in the blank. NBC putting the Notre Dame Purdue game on Peacock after the weather-delayed resumption to go to the Indiana-Illinois game Saturday night was blank.
It was a catch 180. And the reason why I say that is at the beginning I was frustrated because I was like, I've sat through a weather delay. I just want to see Notre Dame win. They're dominating right now, and I understand that's why they switched. But the reason why I say that is, and this is going to sound a little, what's the word? Arrogant, probably. But, Notre Dame is still the breadwinner majority of the weeks, right? Like, you're NBC, and you have this contract with Notre Dame for a reason. They're the people who consistently make you the most money week in and week out. But on the flip side of it, you have like a top 25 matchup and Purdue's getting the brakes blown off of them, and people have already sat through a 2-hour weather delay on this channel. So like it makes sense. But the arrogant kind of fan in me is like, well, this is still Notre Dame. Like we're still paying a lot of the bills here at the end of the day. So if we want to keep the lights on, let's keep the lights on here. Yeah.
And I mean, I got some texts, some people watching asking me about it, and I'm sure that it ticked a lot of people off. Like John says it made no sense. ND Sailor said it pissed him off, had to go to the NBC Sports app. I'm sure a lot of people were mad, but you've got a 2-hour rain delay, and correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it when Notre Dame went up 49-23? Wasn't it?
It was it was a distinct blowout. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly. So you've got that.
It was like the start of the fourth quarter, I'm pretty sure.
And then you've got what's supposed to be your primetime game, 2 top 10 Big Ten teams, and that's part of their package now as well. Remember, like this whole Big Ten thing on NBC is supposed to be good for Notre Dame because you've got additional programming and that kind of stuff. But, of course, the irony is that Indiana just beat the brakes off Illinois anyway. So what you ended up with was a couple of, you had a unique circumstance, and that's why it ended up moving over. Like in a perfect world, you wouldn't have had a 2-hour rain delay. You wouldn't have had to worry about it. So, fortunately for me, I was there. I was watching it. I didn't have to worry about that. I understand why some people would be upset, but it's also fourth quarter and your team's up by more than 3 touchdowns. So, like a little bit of understanding, probably.
I think what the frustration comes in is Notre Dame's 0-2. The defense is still getting bullied. The one thing that we as fans want to see is the offense, the one bright spot, the offense continue to run that sucker up. And just for Notre Dame to get its first win, like that's it. We were still talking about an 0-2 team at that point. And obviously the signs were on the wall. It would take a catastrophe for Notre Dame to blow that game. But to me, it's just like, again, I think there was a lot of emotion behind it too because of the 0-2 start. The defense is still frustrating as heck. The only thing that was good about Notre Dame football is this offense that just can't be stopped.
That's exactly right. And I think that, that's probably, part of what frustrated some people. It's like, oh, we're finally winning. Now they're going to switch it. I don't have.
And not to mention that everyone just had to sit through another weather delay.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Indiana and Illinois, scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence Indiana's going to win at least 10 games again after Saturday's 63-10 victory over the Illini?
So can you do a quick Google search for me and bring up the Indiana remaining schedule? Like,
who's their schedule? Okay, here we go.
Who's tough on that bad boy?
Here we go. They're going to Iowa this weekend. October 11th, they've got a bye weekend. October 4th. Wouldn't have minded if Notre Dame had a bye weekend October 4th, but that's another story. October 11th, Indiana goes to Oregon. That's a good game. Going to be a test. October 18th, Michigan State. October 25th, UCLA. That's a win. November 1st at Maryland. November 8th at Penn State. November 15th, Wisconsin. Then they close the season November 28th at Purdue.
And how many wins did you say? 10?
10. They are undefeated right now.
So, unfortunately, I have to say this, but I think that I put that confidence at like a 9 out of 10 because really Penn State, Oregon, and Maryland are the 3 games I'm worried about. And even if you lose to Penn State and Oregon, you're at 10-2. So I really have to be another 9 out of 10. And I think Mr. Cignetti, as much as I despise him, is going to be knocking on the playoff door once again this season. And, it's just – I don't know how much better or worse they are compared to last season because Illinois just looked horrible and their coach, like James Franklin, really isn't good in ranked matchups himself. So it's like, is this really a wash? I just can't believe that like Illinois just completely laid that big of an egg. Like they couldn't do anything on either side of the ball. And I was really excited for that game.
I know. I thought it would be competitive. I think a lot of people thought it would be competitive. I mean, they put it in primetime. And I tell you what, like I'm not a big Curt Cignetti fan, but he
you Google him and he does win.
He does. He won that one anyway. I think that, like, to answer this question, my confidence they're going to get to 10 wins, I would put it at a 9. I think they're good. They're going to lose to Oregon and to Penn State. I'm really curious, like, how close the game against Oregon is going to be, especially since it's on the road. It's out there, but the way Oregon has been waxing people so far this year. But I think that they get to 10 wins and they're going to be in playoff consideration again. And I think that Cignetti has no problem running it up against anyone else who gets in his way when he has the opportunity to.
How mad would he be if Notre Dame and Indiana are sitting there at 10-2? Again, long way down the road, but that would make him like so mad.
Someone was saying they don't know if they're actually better. Like, they appear to be a little bit more, like they were a fairly physical team last year. They appear to be faster this year. But again, it's in comparison to Illinois. So I don't know exactly
Let's
what
hold our thoughts for that until that Oregon game, maybe.
I agree. Let's reassess after Oregon. I think that is a very, very fair statement. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Dabo Swinney had this line last week when asked about criticism from Clemson fans. Quote, "If they want me gone, if they're tired of winning, they can send me on their way." End quote.
It's fair but immature. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's won the conference 8 out of the last 10 years. He's got national championships. He's got a lot of the accolades. Just because it's going bad 1 out of those, 10 years, it's not time to burn it down a little bit. But at the same time, like, Dabo needs to be more mature and not make statements like that. Like, just be a grown man, like, you're having a down season. Just take one to the chin and roll with the punches a little bit. Like, you being insecure does nothing more for the fans' insecurity at this point, right? And so, like, we know the AD isn't going to boot him. We know that Clemson football and the boosters aren't going to boot him. Oh, for sure. I mean, look at his track record. He's got national championships. He's got conference championships 8 of the last 10 years. Like, that's the whole point of my argument.
Every year it's a little bit worse.
Sorry, I got muted there somehow.
I don't know what happened. Go ahead. Were you done? My point is every year it gets a little bit worse, and at this point he might get his wish. They might just send him on their way. The way, like, you just lost. Granted, he said that going into Syracuse. He obviously felt pretty confident about being able to beat Syracuse at home, but Syracuse owns him at this point. Like, who else in the ACC has as many wins against Clemson as Syracuse? And, like, these feel like famous last words. To be 1-3, absolutely, John. I agree with what you're saying. Not a very good look for Clemson or for Dabo, a team that people were picking to potentially win a national championship this year. Klubnik has not looked that good. And look, let's face it, Dabo, even though he has taken on a few transfers now, he still has gone kicking and screaming, and he has not embraced the current state of college football. And that is his biggest downfall right now. You can be a great coach, but there's a lot more going on in college football than just being a good coach at this point. And that's where he is right now. And he's been there for a long time as well. Like, coaches don't approach 20 years at one school. And that's where he is right now. He's not quite there yet, but he's approaching that. And it's adapt or die is where it's at. And he has not adapted very well. And he's starting to die a pretty slow death in terms of his success as a college football coach. We'll take our last time out and then back with more rapid fire Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down the show, Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. We got time for a few more questions. Fill in the blank. Steve Angeli tearing an Achilles in Syracuse's upset win over Clemson is blank.
Devastating. It's absolutely devastating. You feel for a guy who's had some injuries before. He felt like he wasn't getting his fair opportunity. He could still lead a team to success. He goes to Syracuse. They're starting off hot. He's got some of the best passing statistics in the country, albeit you're playing Colgate and whoever else they played. I think like Villanova or FIU or someone. But then he goes in there against a team like Clemson and he tears it up too, and so leading the team to a big upset. It's just devastating, no matter if you like Steve Angeli, whether you like Syracuse. Like, just being a football fan, you never want to see someone go through that sort of injury. If we're spinning this in a positive way, he will have 2 years of eligibility left, assuming he gets that red shirt for this season. So, there's still football to be played, but like, as an Achilles or anything major that happens in your leg, you just fear of compounding, right? Because like maybe now your ankle is compromised or maybe your knee is compromised because of your Achilles. Like, you just hope that these injuries don't go on. But yeah, it's just devastating.
Yeah, it is. It's brutal. And, it stinks because Steve Angeli got his shot. He left Notre Dame, with his degree, goes to Syracuse, and he was lighting it up, man. He very responsible for the fact that Syracuse beat Clemson on the road. And obviously Clemson has turned out to be not nearly what we thought they were going to be, but that was a huge win for him and for Syracuse. And so it just stinks that in the middle of all that, he gets, he got landed on in the first half after his scramble. He kind of went, I think he went head first and the guy kind of came down on him. And then later on in the game, that ends up happening. So just devastating to see that kind of thing. You never want to see anyone, whether it's ACL, Achilles, any of those kind of things. And now it's all over with. And so we're not going to get the, the big reunion on senior day back here at Notre Dame Stadium like we thought we were going to when Syracuse comes to town. It's going to look a lot different now. So the storyline's going to look a lot different, in terms of what might have been with Angeli and Syracuse coming back here.
Two things. You are definitely fighting some end of show achiness right now. And
is it obvious?
Well, you're full standing, and then also you're kind of like rocking back and forth there a little bit. Second thing is, can we just talk about, okay, we've seen what CJ Carr is capable of. We've seen what Steve Angeli did with Syracuse. What does this say about Kenny Minchey?
About how good he could be as well, you mean?
If the competition was that stiff between Carr and Minchey, and the guy you kick out, Angeli, is doing what he was doing at Syracuse, can we just say that this quarterback room that Notre Dame had, might have been just uber talented?
Might be the best quarterback room they've ever had.
For real, if we're seeing these sort of results, and that to me just shows that Kenny Minchey is going to find a job somewhere too. I guess that's probably what I was getting at, is I think Kenny Minchey is going to get his shot as a Power 4 starter.
Okay, Bears thrashed the Cowboys 31-14. Caleb Williams, 298 yards, 4 touchdowns. Will he ever look as good as he did yesterday again?
So it's funny that you posed the question this way, because I hadn't even said this to you yet. But 2025 Dallas Cowboys defense led by Matt Eberflus. If you want to see how every offensive coordinator dreams of their offense looking, just line up and play the Dallas Cowboys, because everything is going to work. Everything you drew up schematically is going to work. You're going to have a career day. I mean, look what Russell Wilson did last week, and then look what Russell Wilson did against the Chiefs last night.
I know.
If you want to look spectacular, you want to get the confidence back, your mojo back, and you want to know that everything that you dial up as an offensive coordinator can work, just play the Dallas Cowboys.
Russell Wilson led the Giants to 15 total points in the 2 games not against the Dallas Cowboys. Caleb Williams, 31 points. Like everything went right for Caleb Williams. Vincent it was texting with us yesterday. He's like, that's literally the best Caleb Williams has ever looked. Will he ever look that good again? That's a good question. I don't think that he will.
People don't realize that we're living through. It's like what's the show, Freaky Friday or whatever, or it's like I watched the Notre Dame defense on Saturday, and I swear I'm watching the same defense on Sunday.
It's really no different. They're having the exact same problems. All the things Cowboys fans are talking about. They want to fire Matt Eberflus. They're complaining about all this zone defense, and guys in the media down there in Dallas are going, see, even when they play man-to-man, they're still giving up big pass plays. They're not getting any pass rush because obviously they traded Micah. It's like, make a list. It is all this, like everything that Notre Dame's defense is going through, the Dallas defense with Matt Eberflus is going through. By the way, though, Ben Johnson, like comes out on top on this one, but like week 1, he plays his old team. They give up 50-some points against his old team. The Detroit Lions, Matt Eberflus against his old team gets thrashed as well. Like maybe there's something to these former coaches going against their
well, I will say any offensive coordinator in this league that is at the skill level of like McVay, Johnson, the guy over at Philadelphia, like they're going to run laps around the Cowboys defense. Like all of these good coordinators are just going to, they're just like the Cowboys are just like a punching bag.
They hung with the Eagles in the second half anyway. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate all the stuff in the chat tonight. Jesse, appreciate you. I will talk to you tomorrow, sir. We will talk to you then. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.